Hi, my name is Jace Calloway. We're the mom and pop organization for Finola. We're from Finland. And this is Anita Hemmilä. Would you say something, please?
So this is the second time that we came to Winnipeg and to the Hemp Trade Alliance conference. It's been super interesting. We have met a lot of interesting people and can really feel the vibe and the energy, and can also see the progress that has taken place since the last time we were here, which was 2006.
And here we have a real Canadian, a real Finola grower from Alberta. Will, would you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, thank you. Yes, my name is Will Van Roosel, and my wife and I farm in Bow Island, Alberta. We've been growing hemp for 5 years, Finola for 4 years. This year, all of our hemp production was Finola. We grow some of it for grain and some for seed for planting by other farmers next year.
Right, thank you very much. And from another perspective, we have David Marcus, who I met probably, 15 years ago in Vancouver, when we started this out at the Vancouver Commercial Trade Hemp Symposium back in February 1996, when this was all literally just a pipe dream. Say something.
Sure. So I'm Dave Marcus. My company's name is Natural Emphasis. As Jay said, we've been in and around this hemp industry for quite some time. Had the pleasure of growing 180 different land races back in the late 90s and early 2000s with Dr. Ernie Small, which we published, and since then have been involved in a number of different aspects with hemp, including hemp breeding.
Right. So what I'd like to say about Finola, since you don't really know maybe where it came from, it really did come from Finland. We started this in 1995, and we didn't know what we were doing at all. It started off as a joke, basically. And I almost got deported from Finland. Well, that's another story. But we stood our ground. We had a vision. We just believed it was a good idea. And honestly, without Canada, we would, how can I say it? I would have been crazy to think that this would be where it is today in 2014. This is totally unbelievable. It's truly got a life of its own. Wouldn't you say so?
Yeah, and then also I'd like to add that the reason we got into hemp to begin with was that we were living in this village, and our good friend Ulla Kolehmainen was the cultural secretary of that place. And in that village there is a little field, and she was asking us actually already in 1994 what to plant the following year in this field. So we suggested that let's bring back an old variety. An old cultural plant, hemp, because hemp has been grown in Finland and in Europe, in the old times. So it was a reintroduction of a cultural plant. And this was a 2-year cultural project that we had. So, and we also arranged a seminar, sort of the first modern hemp seminar in Finland, that following year in the autumn. And then I was working as an art teacher at the time. So the year after that, in other words, 1996, I used some of the fiber that was grown in this field with my art students. And we did not think of having this as a commercial enterprise in any way. We were actually in other areas, in academia. And we tried to give this idea away for free, but nobody wanted to do it because it was so early. There was still this difficult image of hemp at the time. So eventually we told each other that, well, if nobody is doing it, I guess we have to start working on this.
And then we did. And it didn't go very well. And we sent it over to Canada in 1998. So Finola, our only child, sent over to Canada for her education. And hasn't that been interesting? So we have one message from Finola, because Finola is a plant and can't speak for itself. The message is, let my people grow.
So when we first started 5 years ago, most of our neighbors were quite curious to see what this new crop was, and I live in an area where in southern Alberta, where all the land is irrigated, and there is a wide variety of crops growing already. So, so people are used to seeing new crops in that area because there is such a wide variety of crops. So people were quite interested, and after a year, then you know, one or two other neighbors, you know, saw the success I had and decided to grow a field, and so over the last few years, the people who have started have gradually increased their acres, and so when they increase their acres, then other people, other farmers are thinking that, you know, things are going fairly well, and we've had to learn some things along the way of how to manage the crop under our conditions, and especially how to harvest. But we've had pretty good success, and the people who have started to grow hemp in southern Alberta under irrigation are generally very committed to high management crops. So when they've decided to grow a field of hemp, you know, they make a commitment to do it right. And I think that's been a big part of the success in southern Alberta, is that the people have been committed, partly because they have to be, because we have fairly expensive land and high inputs. So they know that if they're going to make this crop work, that they have to do it right. Otherwise, they're not going to get the returns. So there's quite a large area of hemp grown now in irrigated area in southern Alberta, and people are quite happy with the returns they're getting. And most of those acres are Finola, because the Finola does it's quite short and it's easier to manage under our conditions.
So the thing that really thrills me about being here this year is to see that this industry, which has grown over, you know, the many years since the mid and late 90s that we've been doing this. In the early years of commercial production, it was very volatile, and there were very low production years and then very high production years, and it was fraught with risk for growers without contracts. And here we are. I saw in 2003 we had 6,000 acres in Canada. In 2013, 10 years later, there were over 65,000 acres. And then last year, or this year I should say, in 2014, we've now broken 100,000 acres in Canada. And the forecasts or projections are for that to continue to increase. And in a large part, I have to say, it's because of the varietals and the farm management techniques. But I think the other thing that's really important has been the processors, who have really established amazing quality standards, high efficiency standards, and so that we actually now have a commercially viable crop. And the acreage that we're seeing now is really long-term sustainable and continuing to grow. And that's really been the dream, is to have hundreds of thousands of acres growing in Canada year in, year out, providing a good income stream for farmers and a healthy and delicious product for consumers. And I really believe, after all these years, we've finally broken through this this really symbolic and important level of 100,000 acres. And I think it's not one of those early blips. This is here to stay, and it's going to continue to grow.
So it's really phenomenal to see the progress over these years, and I especially want to recognize the Canadian government for not only allowing this to happen, but actually supporting it. It shows the Western world an example of how this can be done, so we can get away from the fear of cannabis, which we just call cannabophobia. It's something you don't have to have. You can treat cannabophobia with exposure to cannabis products, so the more the better. And remember, folks, Calgary 2015, Canadian Hemp Trade Alliance, be there or be square.